Hi, this is Mike Brown, owner of Death Wish Coffee Company. Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast.
I love Jeff, but sweet and high. Whoop, Mr. Motorama coffee.
Death Wish Coffee presents Fueled by Deathcast, the world's strongest podcast. Get ready, the show's about to begin.
Welcome to Fueled by Deathcast. This is episode 147, or season 3, episode 43. And as always, I am the incredible Jeff. And I'd love it if you took a second and followed Fueled by Deathcast on social media, at Fueled by Deathcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can stay up to date on all the new things that I get to do here at the show. Also, if you're listening to this podcast, wherever you like to listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Music, or anywhere else, or watching it in full video on the Death Wish Coffee Company YouTube page, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Again, the best way to get notified when new episodes come out. And everything we do here would not be the same without the voice of death himself, Brock Powell. Brock Powell is the voice actor on this show and 1,000 voices out there in the world. I'd love it if you followed him on social media at BrockVox across all platforms and follow his journey through the industry that is voice acting.
Secret code unlocked. Discount of death.
You heard Brock right there. For being a fan of Fueled by Deathcast, you get a special discount code. Go on over to deathwishcoffee.com and at checkout, type in the code Discount of Jeff, all one word, for 12% off every purchase you make on deathwishcoffee.com. Want to take a second here at the top of the show to shout out some friends of the show. First up, for any fan of hip-hop out there, you can't miss the show, Mr. Throwback Thursday. Every single Thursday, wherever podcasts are found, Jamie and Bill break down classic and current hip-hop, and it is a must-listen to all fans. And love those guys. They've actually been guests on this very show as well. Next up, definitely check out a new podcast that I've been listening to called the Irish Whip Podcast. 3 Irish guys breaking down the fandom that is wrestling. And they have some cool guests and some cool stuff to talk about when they come out with new episodes about current wrestlers and wrestlers of the past. And it's really awesome. And I just got to be a guest on their show as well, so you can go listen to me on the Irish Whip Podcast, wherever podcasts are found. Finally, a brand new podcast, 3 Spooked Girls, that it's a paranormal and true crime podcast of 2 best friends, Jessica and Tara, as every single Monday, they break down something spooky, supernatural, and sometimes murderous. Then they come back every Thursday to bring you a mini episode called Stabby Snippets. Tune in for a lot of fun, some themed drinks, and a whole lot of scares. My guest this week is Elizabeth Streb. She's a choreographer, performer, dancer, and teacher who, since a very young age, has been testing the limits of the human body. And she created Streb Extreme Action dance crew. And I got to go and meet the crew and talk with Elizabeth right on the floor at the Tang Museum at Skidmore College. And it was incredible to see them in action because just from afar, it looks like a bunch of dancers and acrobats kind of exploring their space. And that's what they're doing, but from a totally new, realized way that is absolutely incredible and will lift your spirits to watch. And it was really awesome to sit down with Elizabeth and talk about her career, how she got into it, and how she has created things like SLAM, which is the Streb Lab for Action Mechanics in Brooklyn that you can go visit yourself and take classes and learn these types of things that these dancers are doing. So cool. So mugs up this week for this week's death guest, Elizabeth Streb.
The Fueled by Death guest.
I mean, what is this? This great quote from Isaac Asimov that I found in this book called Failure. I've never heard this quote before, but maybe you have. But it said the best word in physics is not eureka, but that's funny.
Huh.
And it's so beautiful because you notice the way they did in the proton colliders, you know, when they were like the last number of years in CERN, having these protons travel in the accelerator close to the speed of light, probably not quite, and then they smash. And a physicist at Harvard named Lisa Randall said that they look for the odd event that's occurring after those collisions, and that's how they were able to say that Peter Higgs, that the Higgs boson was existed. They proved that it existed. Pretty amazing, and the guy is still alive and could learn that. But I feel sort of like that. I look for the odd thing that surprises. You set up an experiment, which these equipments are, and then you see what you hadn't predicted you might notice when things start to happen. And I think that is just an inquiry system. You collect evidence, but you never really come up with an answer, not really, with a period at the end of the sentence. So my inquiry over the years has constantly shifted to new pieces of hardware and equipment, and there is no real end to it, and I'm still as obsessed with it. I was really I didn't have like one of those illustrious careers where I was noticed at first because no one really knew what I was doing. So I figured I could have been barking up the wrong tree this whole time until, I did start getting awards and some kind of reputation. But I don't really care about that. It is important to be able to raise money and
of course
pay for this absurd thing. But once we decide on a physical situation that will allow us to investigate foreign space that we haven't been to before, and develop some kind of vocabulary that will have some capacity for surprise, danger, really being able to take us into foreign territories spatially and temporally and force fields. And I thought it was way too limited for many years. And finally I said, I'm going to do it. Wow. And then he built it, we bought it, and we've been developing this since last October. That's sort of the method. But I draw, this is a drawing, these are drawings for this, but I choreograph by drawing, trying to imagine it's possible. But really, what you just saw us do is how we make our final decisions.
Because that was what's so incredible. You actually answered another question that I had was, does this stem from, because it seems like you put a lot of science behind a lot of what you're doing.
In a very quotidian way.
Correct. But I wanted to know, and you answered that, if you actually visualizing this on paper first, or if it was kind of in the moment and that's how we kind of made that. But that's very interesting that you had this drawing, you had this built, and then kind of are working that space out. Like I was noticing just now as we were watching it, like one of the directions you gave, and it was so cool to see this in real time, was can you hold each other's hands as you go?
And that's been a question for a while, but then I thought if it's not perfect unison, it will lead to just wrapping the shoulders and whatnot. But they've been getting better at perfect unison, and so what they did.
It was so cool because like you pose that question, basically you say that to the universe.
Yeah.
Like, hey universe, is this possible? And you're actually like, I think so.
Yeah. And then it went around at once. And it's interesting because you say hold hands, but then really when they stretch your hands out, they're with your shoulders.
Right.
Really, they have to either go down like this and then go up like this, like low V, high V. It's just amazing what surprises. You have to be humble enough to ask a question that you don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
You really don't know the answer to any question you ask in terms of movement, space, and time.
It's so true, especially when you're utilizing it in such a dimensional way. You're not just on the ground, just figuring out how the body can move like this. You are up in the air, and rotating and figuring all of that out. And that's what's so interesting about it. And the other thing that I took away from this, and it's something that you talk about a lot with Streb, is the emotion invoked in me. Just watching them, because my neck is cranked up, watching them up, so I feel uplifted, and as they're creating some of these motions, as they look like they're fish out of water, or as they're flying, or stuff like that, I'm literally feeling how they are like enacting it, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. No, and it's like you just don't know. You could spend $40,000 and go, bad mistake, man. Let's see, I got to do something. I better hurry up. And I think that the humility of the invention of action moments is really ever present. You don't really get settled into it because it increases your capacity to understand that you know nothing about forces once you're dealing with real force. And the right side up, my reputation is in the dance world, but I am the dance world. There is actually a dance program here at Skidmore, and they don't like me, and they haven't been to say, hey, hi, welcome, Elizabeth, we're so happy you're here. And the initial thing was, you're going to hurt our kids, and it's dangerous. It's not just dangerous, they think it's violent. So here's my critique of them, and I do it gingerly and kindly, but you can't just be on one piece of support. It would be like having only one octave in music. It would be like having, what do they do in mathematics, where you basically invent a new number system, like what do you call those, the square root of I, imaginary numbers. And it doesn't work for everything, but it solves some problems that came up and required them to invent a new number system. To answer the questions, it became either more idiosyncratic or when they got into the quantum universe, I forget exactly what application imaginary numbers have. But you can't just have one basic support. Right. In movement. And you can't decide that the body is the subject, because everyone knows what the body can do. You cannot provoke surprise. If everyone were honest in the theater, dancing is something you want to do. Watching it has, I think, been a failed film, because they are unrigorous in their investigation of the tenets of movement, which are time, real time, action time, causal time, space, on the ground, in the air, becomes multi-directional, and you can't understand where you are, and also forces. And so my argument is just that music is a true enemy of dance, that you really have to deal with not leaving landing out of the equation. Like the whole idea that, okay, it should be graceful, let's do all these techniques, so we leave the ground from our feet, and we return to our feet, and it's going to be smooth, and the transitions will be smooth, and grace is this, and it applies to the body and cause time and space, and that's just absolutely untrue. And I'm here to tell you, I'm sure of it. And sometimes I'll say to them, in 50 years, we will both be dead. I talk to a person who say that. And you realize that I am right so wrong. I like to say that because I just am trying to provoke them into some kind of new set of decisions, that the body won't do anything on stage that will ever be able to surprise anyone. Yeah. Not anyone. And I know that's true.
In the beginning, like you said, it must have been very hard to explain to people that you existed, that Streb, this idea existed. Yeah. But reputation must help that out a little bit, right? Like to create awareness of what you are creating?
It does a little, but it doesn't change my curiosity. It doesn't shift my rudder that much, and I don't rely on my reputation because, it comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. And the way I supported this was I got a loft in Soho in the 70s. It was raw. I was cooking in restaurants for cash because I wouldn't pay my student loan back, which it was SUNY Brockport. It was only $4,000, but I wasn't gonna. You have to be an artist, and you can't deal with what you're supposed to be doing. So I went underground till I was really 42 or so. Got my first paycheck from my company. Anyway, I say that because I felt that my inquiry was very vivid and pure. I had no compromising. I didn't have people to disappoint or impress. There weren't people who loved your first piece and wanted you to continue to make that first piece for the rest of your life. So because I was unsuccessful for so long, my inquiry got very established as my set of questions, no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It becomes inspiring, though, because at the core of it, you know what you want to create, you know what you want to put into this world, and be damned anyone else. And you're going to do that. And you've done that your entire career, and it's brought you to the ends of the earth to do these types of things, which is incredible. One thing that I wanted to bring up that was so striking, being able to see this, and I saw this as it happened, and I wanted you to, I know you've talked about this before, but in 2012, when you got to be part of the London Olympics,
right,
and you're literally on the side of a building.
Yeah.
Like, in a moment like that, does the focus of what you are creating and what you're doing, does it allow you a moment to look around and go, I'm on the side of a building in London right now? do you get to be in that moment, or is the focus and the drive just kind of taking over and you're just kind of part of it?
More the latter, I would say, because one, it's pretty terrifying. And I figured, I was worried because I won't take off my boots, my Fluvog boots, and John Fluvog made me a gold pair of boots. They're the ones that come up. I have this and that pair, quite a few pairs of the ones that come up to your knees. So I knew it was a glass building and you couldn't get on it beforehand.
Yep.
And so I thought, well, I really can't slip, man. And it was and you couldn't get on it. You couldn't get on it beforehand. And I was at the top of the building. So the answer to that question is no. I'm terrified for my dancers. We got on the spokes of the London Eye, and we jumped off the Millennium Bridge. There were just so many unknowns because we weren't able to. We developed what do you call it? We retrofitted what it would be like physically in the studio or in Galleon's Reach in London, and rehearsed for a month. But it was not getting on those things and worrying about my dancers. I don't worry about myself that much. I just figure, well, if I fell off the building, it would probably go pretty fast.
Probably.
And there's nothing to write home about or cry about. No, I'm very much in the present. We're the present tense company on every level. It really isn't about, you don't regret the past or hope for the future. You're just where you are to really execute properly.
Wow. And just because you brought it up, I got to know. So where does the boot stem from? Where, like,
the boots?
Yeah.
Those are the boots I walk on. These boots are made for walking. I've worn them for decades, probably. They were I have a look that represents me personality.
Yep.
And
the boots have just always been a part of that.
Yeah, they really always have been. I never ever bought a pair of sneakers or jeans. Even though I guess I grew up during the hippie era. I was never a hippie, I'm here to tell you, man. I was never. So, yeah, the boots, you have to wear boots.
You gotta
wear boots.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So on the other side of this, not only with all the incredible installations and performances that Streb does, you've also, in 2003, you started Slam. Which is in Brooklyn, which is basically your space that you do a lot of what I saw today. You're working stuff out, but you also, which I think is amazing and also inspiring, it basically says it's open all the time to everybody.
Yeah.
Why? How come?
Why is it a public space? You mean people can come walk in?
Yeah.
The stranger and the woebegone. Yeah. Well, I had my studio in Soho from 77 to 95. But we were in court 15 of those years or so, loft court, fighting. But I had that space. I figured, well, I have it tomorrow probably, and didn't worry about the future. That was on the third floor of Canal Street in New York, and so people were invited in, but they didn't really come in. We worked with kids even then, from the late 80s till now. And then I went into a whole bunch of garages in Williamsburg, like including St. Anne's, and then Bed-Stuy. I just rented these 14-foot garages. And they were on the street, so people started coming in. And some of them were streetwalkers, and some of them were just passersby, and the door was open and they walked in. When I got Slam, it was funded by the city of New York, and certainly the origin of the money was from taxpayers' money, and I ended up being able to buy it because of that. And I thought, my first question in 2003 was, what do I have here that I made for all these years that has any relevance to those people who are walking by? And I just thought I wanted to fray away at the ivory tower operation habit and start to demythologize operations. Like, we have to all be in here together, just the choreographer and the dancers. And they were all white when we went in there, my dancers. And they also really didn't like it when I stood up from rehearsing and walked over to a stranger who wandered in and started chatting with them. And they actually yelled at me, This was before I figured, as a female director, how to tell young men they can't yell at me. I mean, I said, you may not yell at me, but they did, So finally I went, oh, you're fired. that started changing things around. But it was, as a female director, it took a while, to do that, and noticing how upset the art world, essentially represented by my company, was when I wasn't staring at them the whole time. And so this is a longer answer than possibly you expected or requested. But I felt that was one. It was never the women that got upset, but they could have been, because they were used to my full-on attention. And I don't want to, I saw the dance, I made the dance. We made it together sometimes, like, depending on what movements we have to do. But I'm not interested in being your mother. I had never had kids, I never wanted them. I have plenty of kids and kids action. And so I just decided to, the company changed. And my girlfriend, Laura Flanders, is a journalist. She has the Laura Flanders Show, and she had a show on Air America, and she's WBAI, it was a radio, counterspin, fairness and accuracy in reporting. And she really greatly influenced me when I got Slam about the public and about what it means to bring in outside thinkers. And it really has completely changed the way we work. And everyone in the company now, teaches the 600 kids we have in their after-school program. And it just started to morph into a more egalitarian and also a more inclusive space. And people now come in from all over the world. And they see Born to Fly. That's a movie that was made by Catherine Gund. And it's on Amazon Prime. It was on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I don't think it is anymore. But anyway, we enter. It's just a fabulous thing, and people change the architecture of your thinking when they ask questions that you don't expect. Whereas when you're unknown and unsuccessful, people hammer at you all the time, and that goes away. The kind of interruption and stranger thing that is there when you're a young, unsuccessful artist goes away when you become more established. Yeah. And so it's really a version, long story short, it's a version of bringing that interruption and strangers back in the equation to jostle your brain a little bit.
I think it's so needed in today's society, is a space like that, because again, as someone who is seeing what you do and what Streb does on the outside, my initial thought is, I could never do that. I could.
Really? Yes, you could. Get those boots. Get those boots over there, man. Let's go.
Okay, here we go.
You're going up.
But to be able to have the ability in a space that says, well, why not? Why not try?
Yeah.
Come on in and give it a shot.
Right.
Then immediately that all melts away from me, and then I feel, I feel like I'm included. I feel like it's not, I need to go to 10 years of school and I need to be ambidextrous and way more flexible than I'll ever be in my life and all this stuff. It's unattainable. Right. It's totally obtainable. I can literally go to Brooklyn and walk into Slam and just
fly,
be a part of it, and just fly. And I think that is a larger conversation on our society that needs to be there. And I think that's really important. And it's really awesome that that's there. You were talking about the kids that are a part of it too. And I wanted to talk a little bit on that, because you are not only all-inclusive, you're all-inclusive all ages,
all
anybody
ages,
who wants to come in there and fly can. Is it a different curriculum towards an adult as towards a child?
Slightly, but it's about personal best. Anybody, there's actually, surprisingly, a number of people on the spectrum, kids, the parents go, oh my gosh, we don't have a program for that. It's just action really not assists, but really everybody is an action specialist, so that they're comfortable there.
Yeah.
And I think that the curriculum is different for the 1.5-year-olds than it is for my dancers. But the principles of pop action are taught right from the get-go. And I don't teach. I'm not a teacher. I like to think of myself as an inventor. I'm obsessed with hardware. What else do I do? I specialize in designing machines with a lot of tech. I call them, tech junkies, kind of.
Yeah,
I'm like that. And I draw and do this, and I raise money. Those are my jobs. I don't teach. However, all my dancers do. And they're interested in teaching and in being generous to the people who walk in. And they understand, and Cassandra Joseph, my associate artistic director, it develops a pedagogy and the curriculum there. So kids have stayed there from age 5 and 6 all the way now to teenage years in the kids' company. There's Kids Maverick, and it's a whole full-blown program where those kids invent movement and they invent machines.
Wow.
And they invent the actual choreography with Cassandra's help. And the notion is, this is just an inquiry system, Streb Extreme Action. It's a way of asking questions about time, space, body, forces, and anyone can do it. My suspicion is that many of them would turn out to make things as interesting as some of the things I've made. It's not just a single artist thing, you know.
Is there a look at, like, with the curriculums at SLAM, is there a look at someone being able to learn everything they can learn and then become part of Streb? Is that the end goal, or?
Not really. And so far, we've had a couple audition, you know, who have been in the whole program of Kids Action, but not really. I feel that it does all these things to your self-esteem. You know, it whittles away that outside thing about what you need to have esteem and who breaks it down in the education system. But also just the idea that you can fly and you can land and you can do anything you want to do, and your thoughts about movement are as critical as mine or any other individuals if they are curious and can overcome their fear of falling.
Wow. That's incredible. It really is.
It's more inspiring than having most dance schools that elevate you to the company and so what. It's still, you're performing for. My big tragedy is, I woke up, you know, I'm 69, I woke up, I go, oh my God, I'm going to be performing for the elite for the rest of my life. So all I want for whatever time I have left is to keep inventing, just because I'm what is the word? Something. I'm looking for my Berry Gordy. You know, I'm looking for someone to, like, take me out of this art world and go to the real world and go to NASCAR. Or I want to be the next monster truck or be the next World Wrestling. That's what I want.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's what I want.
Wow.
Look out, world, man.
Wow.
Streb Extreme Action. And some people will say, well, extreme action isn't like wrestling. Everyone knows wrestling. It's not like soccer. Everyone knows soccer. I don't know, but they should know extreme action because everyone can do it, and look out, world. And we do it in an extreme way.
Yeah.
But it could be something that could make trillions of dollars. It's not that I want trillions of dollars. I just want to take it out of this sector and into another sector.
That's incredible, and I think that there's a ton of potential for that as well.
Don't you think?
Of course, and that kind of actually harkens to the theme of this actual show. Fueled by Deathcast is all about, we are all fueled by death. We want to leave this world a little different before we inevitably leave it for good. Yeah. And so I always come to the question of, through everything that you've done and continue to do, what fuels your passion to keep creating, keep inventing, and keep doing this?
Just really interest. I follow my interest and my obsessions. I did right from the very beginning. I wasn't dissuaded about its practicality in the real world, and I'm able to notice what I'm curious about. And sometimes I'll think, what should I make next? And I have a blank page, but the beauty is the blank page forces you to figure out what to put on that blank page. And I'm not a sentimental person. I don't care if my name's remembered or any of that. People are now, because of my age, also a lot of the foundations are going, archives. What are you going to do with it? What do you want to leave behind? I go, I'm not spending my time with archives because it's a sinkhole. It's very time consuming and expensive. I'm not doing that. However, I have an idea for my death. That I would, and I've professed it in several circumstances, but that I want to be so used up that I just burst into dust at the end of my moments. And then it would happen so suddenly that I probably wouldn't even notice it. Of course, I could do the horrible thing and get really sick and have to hang around and all that, but I think that the death thing is clear, that the days that are left are fewer than the days that I've enjoyed. And I'm aware of that, and I think of it like that. How ought I spend my life, however long I have left? Yeah. Kind of the Mary Oliver, tell me, what is it you want to do with your one wild and crazy life? And you better do it, and get everything you don't want to do out of the way. So I'm a little more adamant about, no. And I leave the things, I don't have the privilege of not raising money with my whole team. I have a whole team. It's not just me.
Right.
I'd rather not ask people for money, but if I go to market, then they'll be asking me for money.
Right.
I like that. But I guess I think death is a very amazing thing. And I think it's the only thing that keeps anyone humble, knowing that you too shall meet the same end as every other single person.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. And I find that very inspiring.
Yeah, no, it really, and it's inspiring when you think about it in your context. Is like, why would I not live every day of my life the way I'm going to live it? Because there is that inevitable finish line. I'm going to make it there at some point. Why not use myself up to the fullest? And I think that's inspiring.
But the thing is, you get into habits, right? Especially, sure. I have people that depend on me and this and that, and I want to read a difficult book all the way through, and I mean, that's how I want to spend some of my time continuing to learn, meaning continuing to learn. And I want to, my girlfriend says I should meditate. She doesn't request it. No, she doesn't suggest it. She now requests it. I go, I know it would be good for me, but I just can't sit here. I'm trying.
I get it.
Trying. And then I think, your question is so deep, obviously. But I think that you have to have the bravery to learn how to say no to a whole bunch of things. I have a hard time saying no to, but I'd rather. And then you have the time to do what you really must do before the end comes. And that's a discipline I'm trying to gain. To say no is very hard.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to another thing I've learned about Streb, and something that you've said in past interviews is that you believe that risk is important. You put risk into everything you create, everything you invent, and everything that you are trying to put out into this world. Is risk, does it ever become a hang-up, or does it fuel what you are creating?
You are so beautifully prepared, I have to say. Thank you. This is probably the best interview maybe I've ever had.
Thank you very much.
You're beautifully prepared. And he doesn't even have any notes. Like, he's the next question. Yeah, really. Beautiful. Beautiful mind.
Thank you.
Risk is, I think if there isn't potential tragedy built into something, like things could go wrong, I do think that it would be like Shakespeare never writing a tragedy. Like, it has to be part of the drama of action. And can I create the temporal schemata that is the subject of what we do. It is the rhythm of the action. And so without that end point, that point of which, when I'm watching that, I'm thinking, will it break?
Exactly.
This is a prototype. And, we have had one bad accident here, but not all the horrible accidents I've ever had that I've watched, which I think now I have PTSD because I've seen in 40 years things you don't want to see.
Yeah.
And here there was this, you can't, if you start to go on the bias, you're head first and you're going to hit one of those pipes.
Yeah.
And that's head first and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that, where you think, oh, this is a pretty benign machine. You're just going straight and swinging. But it's not. No machine is benign because all of a sudden this weird thing could happen. And so I think when I ask them to do certain moves, I worry, should I not ask that question? That sort of is how the fear of risk or death figures into my questions. Wow. And I think most dance people and movement people, not certain sports, certainly, let's say dance, are so worried about their well-being, and especially it's like the blonde kind of handsome rich guy has never gone into boxing.
Right.
Like, why? It's a phenomenon. There's not one.
It's
not
true.
One. What fools they are. They can't get hit. They can't get hurt. But many, many action people in dance are way back from the line at which they might get hurt, and so we try and move up to that line. And then we peer over it and go, but really and truly, you're this far still from where you would die. And then you could say, well, I want to get as close to the moment where we're risking our lives, but not dying, because that's my job, not to die.
Right.
Not to have it, my questions make someone else die. But I try to get as close. I get my nose up to that window as much as I can. And I think that without that danger and that potential harm and that risk, a person this is really about class. How willing are you to let yourself get scarred up, get that close to the window of no return, and that's part of what action has to be about. And so we flirt with that veneer of safety and try and go out over it and develop the skill to survive those zones as much as we can. But that's where the theater and the tragedy occurs, and you're doing this artificial thing to mostly a bunch of rich people, so you gotta scare them a little, you gotta like make them gasp. I'm trying to hold their attention, and that's also another part of it. But,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so excellent. Finally, I gotta ask, for someone who might not have the access to get to Brooklyn to go to Slam, or to be able to experience what you do firsthand, but wants to get into extreme action, get into something like Streb, what would be your advice for them? To go to dance school? To jump out a window?
Don't like to say that. Don't jump out a window.
What would be your advice to go down this path?
I don't know. I mean, I think dances trains you to be careful, and I think you do need that. I studied dance from the age of 17, which was supposedly late. Wasn't for me. I was an action specialist. I got motorcycles at 15, and I did downhill skiing when a working class kid couldn't in the 50s. And I learned a lot about velocity and impact from those two sports. And I think that sports are great to learn kind of how to flirt with that zone that is no return zone. I guess dance is really important to train your muscles on the right spot in your skeleton. So I think the discipline is absolutely necessary, like a daily discipline of some kind of technique. And if it's dance, no big deal. But I don't think dance will provide you with that sort of capacity to invent what hasn't been here before.
Wow. It's so inspiring talking with you. I know the best way to follow what Streb is up to is on the website. And you guys are been here as a residence at the Tang Museum, and you are just finishing that up. What's next this year? Anything big that you can plug or talk about?
Yeah, I think that we're going back into New York, and so I could invite anyone who gets a bus ride down to New York to Williamsburg to Slam.
Yep.
At 51 North 1st Street. Just come in anytime. We're going to rehearse 2 weeks in July, and then a bunch of our sets go to Paris, and a few sets go to Abu Dhabi, and we'll be performing in the middle of September at the Théâtre du Châtelet in Paris. Wow. In a piece called Parade. And then in Abu Dhabi, the 17th and 18th of September, we'll be performing at the Louvre Museum there, that brand new amazing thing in Abu Dhabi. And then in New Jersey, September 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, we are performing at the Alexander Kazar Theater in Montclair, New Jersey. And so come on out there. And we're working with the Gunk Machine, which we'll be rehearsing tonight from 7 to 10. And it's I've invented a gorgeous contraption with 48 pails of stuff in them, liquid and solid, and it's based on a dream I've had of theatricalizing how things fall. So there's molasses and milk. Oh, no, they made me cut milk because it gets sour. Molasses and sugar and perlite and sand and paintballs and water and sprinkles. And flour, cool. Did I say flour? Anyway, there's 48 substances, some are doubled, and they have 48 strings holding down, and we're working with Anne Bogart and the City Company, and there's 6 of them and 6 of us. And the script, the play, is by Charles Mee, playwright, and it is crazy. Everyone gets completely gunked up by the end, and it's the happiest. It's so beautiful. It's like a symphony. It is a symphony of falling stuff that, and then it coagulates on the ground, and everybody, it's chaos.
That sounds so amazing.
That's what everybody wants to do, right? Get gunked up.
That's so amazing. Honestly, hearing your story is so inspiring because you are someone who, created their own path, but also wanted to just put what they know to be their truth out into the world. And you do that every day. And that is a very inspiring thing. And the other thing that I've taken away from you and from Streb is that this idea of invoking emotion through who we are and what we can achieve is so needed in the world. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to talk to me.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was really beautiful.
This has been Fueled by Deathcast, a Death Wish Coffee Company podcast production. Thanks for listening.